This episode's magic for a lot of reasons. Let's just start with the 5 foundational principles, things to focus on, to personalizing customer experiences in e-commerce platforms and everywhere that basically guarantee your success. That's where I will start. I was joined by the customization geek, the head of partnerships at Optimonk, which is an incredible website. Also, he used to work at Bonjoro, which is one of my favorite companies in the world with everything they do and how they do it. And we got to do something today I haven't been able to do in a long time, because Erik is a conversion rate optimization specialist, basically with data to back up most of the principles that I teach you. And so today we go into the principles, how you can apply them to an e-commerce site. Then I give examples on how you can apply them to your business, your service business, your coaching business. And it is obsessive about customer journey, personalization, the tools that you can use, how you can use them, where to find resources, and so much more. And so this one was an absolute blast for me. And so I'm going to stop there because this episode is just so good. So without further ado, let me stop bumping my gums and let's get into the episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. And today I am actually really excited. And I'm going to be getting to know the personalization geek as you do, because we've just exchanged some messages and some back and forth. But I knew he was in when he's like, you'll probably say no, but I'd love to have you on the show. And I'm like, just for that reason, I have to say yes. But he is a mind that's just like mine when it comes to customer experience, customer journey. Works at a company as the personalization geek with an incredible tool that leverages all these ecosystems to help build world-class experiences. And so I'm actually really excited because I realized before the show that I haven't really dedicated an episode to just even online shopping experience on the physical side, whether it's WooCommerce or Shopify. And so we're going to take this episode and dive into customer journey, and whatever wisdom and genius the personalization geek drops to me, I'm going to be taking notes and learning. And so that is who is here today. And so I'd love to welcome Erik Melker to the show. Erik,
that was a pretty good intro, George. I don't know if I'm going to live up to the hype, but we'll see.
Well, that's the game. I'm going to put it out there. So we're going to let you do it. And before I even get in, I was like, how are you? He's like trying to stay cool. I'm like, where are you? And he's like, Bucharest. And I was like, wait, hold on. It took my brain like a minute to calculate Bucharest. And so you are joining me all the way from Bucharest to Montana virtually. And I think that's super cool. So I love that. And I love entrepreneurship that you live in Bucharest with your family and we're doing this. Yeah. It's great.
No, it's really nice here. And there's like 4 seasons coming from Texas. And it's definitely a lot cooler than back home. I talked to my brother the other day and he was just saying that there's been so many consecutive days above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And so, and we feel like we made a good choice moving here. Obviously, the weather was a big factor. And because of global warming and just hot temperatures everywhere, it's not as bad as it is back in Houston. And for my folks back in H-Town, I feel you. And I hope your AC is working good. And I hope you're staying cool and hydrated.
Yeah. And tip for next year, call the AC company in March, not June. Get way ahead of it. I learned that lesson here. Because I live in Montana and we don't have most houses don't have AC because we don't get above 93, 94 and it cools off to the 50s at night. But we had a hot summer last year and we had a couple 100 days. And I remember our AC froze and I called everybody and it was a 14-day wait. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so call in spring. So before we get into customer journey, can you give us kind of an overview of how you went from Houston to the customization, personalization geek living in Bucharest with your family, and in customer experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in Houston, I worked as a marketing and CX director for some energy retail companies, publicly traded companies, had big budgets, big teams. And then my wife, she's from Romania. Once we had our kids, we felt like she had been in Houston for a very long time. And we felt like, you know what, maybe it would be nice to go back and let our kids get to know her side of the family. It'd be good because she had been in the States for about 10 years. And also, things like the weather, the cost of living, the ability to go on many vacations, like in the mountains, like a a short drive away. Whereas in Houston, if you drive for 7 or 8 hours, you're still in flat land. I mean, you're still in Texas, right? So we made that decision when COVID happened because we were trying to juggle working kids. We had a newborn kid and a 2-year-old son, and trying to juggle working at home with both kids, it just wasn't happening. And so her mom said, "Why don't you come here? I can help with the kids. And if you guys can work remote, then you guys should be able to do it." And that's what we did. We made that decision, and within 3 months, we were over here. We thought the hardest thing was going to be getting our place rented out, our house. And the day we listed it, we got like 10 offers. Two people said, "We'll pay you more than what you listed it." So that was what we thought was going to be difficult was actually the easiest thing. And once we moved over here, I decided to basically complete change in my career, go from energy and solar to basically tech and SaaS. And so I started getting my feet wet with various startups, most of them based out of Romania, just doing some consulting. And then finally, one of the brands I got referred to was a startup in Australia called Bonjoro. I think you're familiar with them. Casey
I love
Hill,
that.
I got to
Yep.
connect with him. I got to work with him for a little over a year. And then also on the same sort of like the same realm, OptiMonk also is closely related to personalization, but just at a bigger scale. And so the owner started reaching out to me, and one conversation led to another, and that came the opportunity to do some really interesting things with OptiMonk. And that's how I came to be the partnerships manager and personalization geek at OptiMonk. But it really, the personalization stuff really started with Bonjoro. So I'm still a big fan of Bonjoro, and I still send out
Yeah.
personalized videos on a regular basis, whether that's maybe to potential partners or people that I met. It works wonder. I mean, it's a higher engagement rate, higher open rate than your standard email. And so if and where
Mhm.
an appropriate time for a personal video, I usually send one. So I can't believe I didn't send one to you. I'm sorry about that, George. I feel like I should apologize.
It's all right. I mean, like even for me though, like I'm glad you said that. And for everybody listening, we have a couple episodes on Bonjoro, and then with some of the Bonjoro peeps, because I've been using. They didn't even know who I was for like 3 years, and they reached out one day. They're like, "Who are you, and why do so many people sign up for Bonjoro from you?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, sorry. I've been teaching customer journey for years." And then I made a joke, and I was like, "Why don't I have a pink bear suit?" So they had one made for me and sent it to me, and we even talked about the story of the little old ladies in northern London who made the suits by hand and how they were done. I mean, it was incredible. So I love them to pieces, and I'm glad that you were there. And so yeah, even speaking about that, with personalization, I'd love for you to kind of talk about like why you think personalization is so important, because even in like the video message part, I think it's so funny because it's so much easier and faster for me, and it just so happens to be the best tactic by just connecting with a human being on all the right levels. And so I always laugh when everyone's like, "Oh, I can." I'm like, this is so much faster than me, like having to send messages and like type out responses, and like I could just hit you with a video. And so I would love to hear kind of your thoughts of living both in Bonjoro and Optimonk now that are like 100% built on personalization. Like, why do you think that matters? How do you see it? Like you mentioned some things, but like what else do
Yeah.
you
Well,
see
first of
around
all,
that?
the insights clearly tell you that the more personalized that you can be with your visitors, with your audience, the higher the engagement rates, the higher the conversion rates. Here's an example. When we were at Bonjoro, every time a new person, a new user came on to try the product, we would all take turns sending a video. So, "Hey, John, notice you signed up for Bonjoro. Eric here. We're very excited you came on board. Any questions, please let us know." And then we came up with the idea of, hey, if we were to find out what page they came to on the website before they actually signed up for a free trial, then why don't we try to customize that message? So if it was a SaaS page blog post, or if it was a page around education and universities, or a page around coaches, then we actually changed the message on that video. "Hey, I noticed that you're a coach, and check out this blog article we wrote how this coach was able to increase their engagement rates 40% by sending a personalized video and inviting people to their community members." Once we made that little tweak, in the message. It was more
Mm-hmm.
personalized, right? We noticed that there was like a 20% increase in
Mm-hmm.
engagement and conversion rates because we were able to identify, segment, change the content, change the message that was more appropriate for that visitor, for that audience. So the data, I mean,
Yep.
you can ask Casey, the data, the more you can segment, the more you can personalize, and the higher your engagement and conversion rates are going to be. Now that's it from a statistical standpoint, right? But what about from a qualitative standpoint?
Yeah.
Qualitative standpoint, I mean, George, it's probably been a long time, but remember when you got something in a mail, like a handwritten letter? That was,
Yeah. I still
why
send
do you
them
still send them?
because they're personalized and they cut through all the noise. It's an anchor. It's real estate in their life out of a digital ecosystem. It builds an environment and a relationship between me and them that doesn't require them to pursue it with me or me to pursue it with them. It's a personalized touch that anchors in that moment for us that serves as a chapter marker in our life. It's a celebration of the moment. It closes the open loop before the transaction was taking place and anchors in that we're starting a new journey, right? Like I could go to town unless it's all I teach and do, but like it's that. And you know what's interesting is like I think you might appreciate this, and I don't get to geek out with many people like this, right? But the biggest part for me, and even the personalization with the data and the qualitative side, is that I fall into this because when you're speaking about like, oh, when we said coach or when we said blank, how my default when I go hit record isn't that, because I'm speaking the language from the after state. And by adding coach, I'm just translating it into the language for them to hear it to build the bridge between the two, right? And I teach this all the time. And so I'm saying this now for people listening because you are so articulate and it makes it so easy to do this. But what that allows somebody's subconscious to do is to feel safe because they feel seen, even if they don't consciously know it. So what they're thinking and what they're feeling is this person knows me. Oh, they're talking to me. Oh, this must be for me, which allows them the invitation to come in. And so, yeah, that's
Yep.
why I still send them. And I am notorious. I mean, like I have a system and it's pretty remarkable, but yeah, it's so funny to me because actually I tell people this, but you can go and I can send you to like 10 podcasts of very influential people. And if you look in the background, my card is hanging on their wall because I don't send a handwritten card. I have an artist graphic hand draw with a picture that's related to them in our conversation with a handwritten card.
Wow.
And so I make it memorable to the moment or the experience, right? Like when somebody, becomes a client or when somebody comes on this podcast, like you'll get one. And it, for me, it's a really a moment of gratitude, but it's about the podcast and it's about what you said. It's not something I can automate. When we're done, and then I work on it, like I take the time to be like, hey, I appreciate you sharing this and I appreciate you mentioning your family and being a grounded entrepreneur based on values, because I can see that you put your family first. And then, you know you send a card and it's a genuine thank you. But I always say to people that you will never win on width, but you're guaranteed to win on depth. And I'm like, great, you send a DM, I'll send a video. Oh, you send a card, I'll send a hand-drawn picture, right? Like I'm just always like, what's one more? Just because I want it to be memorable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that invitation, I feel like the value of something that is communicated, the value of it is how it was communicated, right? And in your example,
Yes,
yeah,
that's
your
it.
example, it's like, let's say a person got invited to a wedding and there was two weddings on the same day at the same time. One invitation came in the form of an email and the other invitation came in a nice, you could tell, custom design letter, the font, the typography, everything was like really, really nice. Which wedding are you going to go to, George? Which wedding, right?
Yep.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
that's an easy
easy.
decision. That's an easy decision. And so I think with websites, with brands who realize that and are trying to create a personalized experience, in this case, I'm talking about the website, right? Historically, that's been hard. That's been hard to
Yeah, yeah.
do, but with the data that's available today, and even a little bit of creativity, you can really tailor a really nice experience in real time for your audience. And it's, as marketers, we've been so focused on trying to give a personalized experience, usually in the form of email marketing, or after the post purchase. Okay. But here's the thing,
Yep.
when the person is most of the time really interested in your brand, service, or product, it's when they first discover it. It's when they first clicked on an ad. It's when they first
Hmm.
found you through a blog post or through a search link or through maybe it was somebody that posted a link about you in a Slack channel or on LinkedIn. That's when they're really curious to learn more about you. But none of that personalization, for the most part, is taking place in the real time when they get to your website in those next 5 to 10 minutes. The personalization has been really focused on SMS, email marketing, or post purchase journey. We're trying to change that. We're trying to say, well, how about focusing on the first 5 minutes after they first discover you? Here's some ways that you can do that. It doesn't require, a lot of developers, a lot of coding experience, fancy tools. Now it used to. The big companies that were able to do this, like maybe Netflix and Amazon, of course, those were mega companies. They had the staff, they had the resources. But now, because of the advancements in technology, small and mid-sized companies can do this sort of thing at their fingertips. You don't need to have a coding background, mostly a drag and drop interface. If you're just a regular, average Joe marketer like me, you can do these sorts of things with the technology that's available today.
Yeah, and I think that's the part too, because it used to be, and here's actually what I think happened. It used to be so hard, and like we used to have to build funnels page by page. Like I remember 2011, right? It's 35 grand for us to build a quote unquote funnel, right? And now you can launch a 12-part funnel in about 10 minutes with one button and customization. And like Wix came out yesterday and announced that you're going to be able to use their Chat GPT prompts, answer a couple questions, and it will build you an entire website, right? So what I think is interesting is that when that happened, so many tools came in that everybody got obsessed about all the tools and forgot the pieces that worked so well before the tools existed. And that's what everybody should be focused on, because when somebody sees you for the first time, that sets the entire context for that relationship, right? That touch point and that first interaction is like the one that sets the tone. Maya Angelou will tell you that all day. And I do the same thing when I go into companies. They're always like, I want more, I want more, I want more. And I'm like, wait, you can't adopt any more children until you can feed the ones that you have. So first, the ones on the back aren't having a good experience because you were so obsessed on just selling them and not delivering. We create that, and then we move into, oh, that same experience is more important for everybody out here to get them in the ecosystem and in the environment and in the vibe and in the culture, for lack of better terms. So it makes it even easier as a transition because they're in a relationship or an ecosystem that matches. And so I love that you said that. And I think it's huge. And for everybody listening, this is everywhere, right? This is on the website. This is on your socials. This is just understanding that customer journeys are not linear, right? They take place in a series of like systems, and those touch points on the front are the most influential ones in the success of that relationship. And so I love that. I love that. And one of the things that we were talking about before the show is like kind of your fundamentals, like the 5 fundamentals for like an online experience, irregardless of platform. And I'm really excited to hear these, especially through the lens of like e-commerce and that side. And so I'm ready to go to class, Mr. Personalization Geek, right? Like take me
Take it
take
to
me to
church.
church.
Well, okay. Let me give you a few different examples right here. And these are not set in stone, like you must have these 5 experiences. But what I do believe is that there's been some brands that have been able to grow by implementing certain strategies that I'm going to share with you. One of the brands is Avi. They are a protein powder, been around a little bit more than 3 years. Initially bootstrapped with about $10,000 when they came out. Now I think the brand is worth almost $4 million 3 years later. But they're competing in a very saturated and
Wow.
competitive marketplace. Protein powder. Protein powder.
Very, very. And how do you spell that brand
O
name
B
so
V
everybody can look
I.
it up?
OBVI.
OBVI. Okay, obvi. Oh, like obviously, obvi. Okay, got
So
it.
the CEO, Ronak Shah, right? And I think I'm pronouncing his name right, Ronak Shah. I was watching an interview and somebody was asking him like, "Hey, what were some of the key things that help you to scale and grow profitably?" Because people noticed that they were doing a lot of advertising on Facebook. And that was one of the main vehicles for growth. And as you know, it's become harder and harder to be profitable if your main advertising channel is on Facebook because of the iOS 14 updates and the changes and the cookie tracking and all the things related to that. But what they did is that they were able to align the copy on the landing page to the Facebook ad. Now, George, this is nothing magical here. We used to create dozens of
Nope.
different landing pages and tie them to the ads that we ran. There's tools out there. I think Unbounce was one of the tools I remember using in the past. And I'd
Yep.
create these multiple landing pages.
Yep.
But technology today is that you can just have one landing page, and then based on the UTM parameters, you can have the title or the headline of that landing page match the headline that you use in the copy. So one of their value propositions was regrow healthy hair fast. And if you clicked on that, you got to the landing page, and the headline would either match that or be something very, very similar, like "Are you tired of balding spots?" or something like that. But anyway, it was aligned with the ad. And so if there was another ad that you clicked on, and maybe the value proposition was best tasting collagen protein, and then you got to the landing page,
Yep.
the headline mimicked what you clicked on in the ad. And so they were able to do that very easily,
Yep.
very quickly, without a lot of manpower. And they were able to test and run dozens of different Facebook ads to find which ones converted the best, had the most efficient, return on ad spend. And that was one of the strategies that I think all brands could take advantage of today, is especially if you're trying different ads, different creatives that have different copy, is making sure that the landing page is aligned with the ad that you're running. And with the platform like OptiMonk, and I'm sure there's other platforms out there, you can do this now. So I think that's one example.
Yeah, and I want to hit on what you said so much, because you said it. You're like, this isn't magic. No, 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 no. It's the simple required principle to give you a chance of success, right? Because for everybody listening, consistency and congruency is understanding that they're taking it on a journey. And so if somebody sees a Facebook ad and they're promised an experience or something is said, and then they click on it, and the next step doesn't match that experience or continue it, it actually doesn't move them closer. It puts a wall up. And when we talk about reactance from the catalyst, that's reactance, because they're clicking on the ad because something in their life isn't working. They want to change something. They want to do something. And so they get excited. They click, and then the first step after doesn't match. And they're now further away, and you lose them. That's what I mean when I say consistency and congruency for people listening. And now, by the way, I've never seen this brand, but like, I have so many kudos for this brand already. So everybody listening, the website is myobvi, like myobvi.com. And it's a collagen protein. And even the name is embedded into the headlines and the headlines on the landing pages, because I went and found an ad when you were talking, and it was talking about how it was the obvious choice for regrowing hair naturally and healthily and beauty from like the inside out. And then you get on the page and it's obviously, and it's like the obvious blank, and it's a continuation. And so for people listening, like when you say this, before you even get into the tools, it's just understanding that your job when you think about taking somebody on a journey is to meet them as close to where they are as possible, right? And to get them a bite. But then that is bite one of the meal. The next bite has to match and be from the same plate. And then the next bite has to match that, right? So when you get to those landing pages, I bet you most of them are landing pages focused on one product. So that product can take you down that journey. And then once you buy that product and then you're indoctrinated in and you're using that product, you're introduced to the other ones. But then there's also other ads that I'm guaranteeing they run that are like, hey, do you know what the most obvious choice is to help with blank, blank, blank? And then that will go to a page that's like, here's how you find it. Is it your hair? Is it your skin? Or is it your nails? Right. And so I think it's so important. And so it is the subtle things. And so I love that, because that consistency and congruency, they even have it built in at the brand level, like in the brand name all the way down. So I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I love that.
Number
What's
two,
number two?
another interesting brand, BlendJet. Ever heard of BlendJet, George? They make these
Mm-hmm.
portable
Mm-hmm.
blenders. Yep. Founded in
Yep.
2018 by Ryan Pamplin. And he had gotten into an accident, was mostly bedridden, and he couldn't eat solid foods. He could only eat liquid foods. Wasn't satisfied with the different blenders that his family and friends were using to make him food. So he got the idea of this portable, very powerful blender, and he named it BlendJet. Easy to charge, um, very slick design. Now, I think they sell a BlendJet one for every 3 seconds. I think one sold. So massive success. Yeah, massive success. I
Jeez.
think they were on the Ellen DeGeneres show when that show was still running, but they're very popular now, and they sell them all over the world. But anyway, I was watching an interview with Ryan, and one of the things that he said they focus on very early on was increasing the average order value. And with something that I
Mm-hmm.
think most brands don't do, and they should definitely take advantage of, is the fact that people do not like to pay for shipping. Okay. People, if they find out, oh wow, I
Nope.
got to pay for shipping, that's an abandoned cart right there in most cases. And so what they did is they used the platform and they were able to easily implement this little tactic where, let's say it was free shipping if you spent $50 or more, but the blender only costs something like 25 or maybe $29. But if you put that in the cart, then automatically there would be like this horizontal little bar with like a little message that said, oh, free shipping if you spend 21 more dollars or something like that, right? Versus if you pay
Yep.
$19 for
Yep.
shipping, it's like, okay, why am I going to do that? So that
Yep.
was a pretty, simple choice to make.
Yep.
And they were able to really increase, their average order size, from like $29 all the way up to almost $60. Became very, very profitable for them.
Yep.
And it makes the consumer happy because now they're getting free shipping. And so it's a win-win for both brands and
And
the consumer.
I want to do so many podcasts with you just about data. This is so fun for me because everything you're talking about is like the best CRO stuff. And then I'm like, oh, yeah. And here's the psychology as to why this works so well as well. Because that one, for me, like across the board, um, like when it comes to customer journey, all the companies that I work in, like CRO or conversion rate optimization is a big focus that we obviously are always working on, right? And that little one for us like 3 years ago at every single company was the biggest one. So for everybody listening, I also want to give some weight to what Erik said. But when it comes to why people don't want to pay for shipping and why that change matters so much, instead of saying, hey, if you pay more, you get this, it shows them the perceived benefit that they have the ability to choose, right? It's showing them what they can choose, but it's not like forcing it. So when we talk about customer journey, when we talk about marketing, like I said earlier, a lot of the times we get stuck because we can't translate what's happening, right? But a human being, and just for statistically, requires a perceived benefit of 3.1 times greater than their current situation to make a change, right? And so if you tell somebody, oh, when you spend X more, you'll get free shipping, there's no perceived benefit in that for them. That's another investment on their part and another tilt. But when you can show that, like, oh, when you add this, you'll qualify for this and it will save you this, you're saying the same exact thing. The only difference is in their seat, they can understand how that benefit is going to benefit them rather than invest in something else just by simply how we show it. So I think that's huge for everybody. And when we talk about, and everybody as well, when we talk about increasing AOV, for those unaware, that's average order value, right? Specifically, massively important for companies that are running paid media, because that is your acquisition cost money. And the faster you can make that back on acquiring that customer, you are profitable in the back end of the business. But the same principles are equally as important if you're not running paid media, because they're the things that build the foundation to when you
Yeah.
want to, or in the position to, that will allow you to effectively without leaking all of your money out of the bucket. But when it comes to increasing AOV, it's not by adding upsells. It's not by increasing something they don't need. It's by giving them either a more perceived value, more perceived benefit, or more or better of what they're already getting through a lens that supports them in wanting to do it. So there's the psychology piece on that one that I just had to add.
No, it's perfect.
I'm over here like literally this is so fun for me. I'm over here as you're speaking. I'm going to all these funnels when you're listening and I was like, "Oh my god, I need that blender." That's incredible. I forgot about that, but the lessons are so powerful. So
Okay,
what's the
next
next one?
one. There's this Richie Rawat. I think that's his name. He is a CRO specialist. He's on LinkedIn as the Shopify product page guy. And we worked with him. And I liked what he said because he really focuses on the product page. And if you ask him why, and he says, well, that's the closest page that somebody has, or it's the closest page to the checkout page, to the checkout experience. And so if you're going to if you're
Yep.
going to try to get the biggest impact, if you're doing CRO, he focuses there on the product page. But to go even deeper, he has this philosophy that says, don't worry about your entire all visitors. Just worry about 16%. The 16%, that's what he calls them. And he says, for every brand, you have about 3 or 4% of people who are ready to buy. But then about 80% are just not ready to buy. But there's probably around 16%, 16 that are on the fence. And he really hones in on trying to get that 16% to nudge them over the fence. And so we worked with him on this one brand. And what he really focused on was A/B testing different elements on your product page. So, for example, showing a customer testimonial, before the price or before the add now or add to cart button, and or not having or customer testimonial, right? Or having like a little question mark balloon that says more info. And if somebody clicked on that, like a little balloon window would pop up and it had more details about the product, right? Or just having, another product image on their product page, like a video or something that showed somebody using it. And so he had all these like different strategies on how you can A/B test different elements of the product page. And I was really, I guess mesmerized that this person, he's not focused on the homepage. He's not focused on every visitor, he's not even focused on, ads or, Instagram or anything else. He is just specifically focused on the product page and trying to nudge all those people that are undecided to get them over the fence. And I talked to another
Yep.
CRO expert. Same thing. I asked him, when you do a CRO audit, what do you
Yep.
focus on first? Product page. And so that other expert
Yep.
validated that
Yep.
guy's approach, that guy's mentality. And that's the other thing. It's not so much like, hey, here's a strategic thing you need to do, but maybe it is. Maybe it is.
It is, and I'm gonna speak to it because it's huge. So like here's the thing. This is why I created models because of this, right? So one of my famous taglines is my job is not to find our ideal customer, it's to create them. Because I know off the bat, the moment I have a product that solves a problem, that top five, like 3 to 5% of me's, the controllers in the world, will buy it immediately, and the PDP just gets in the way. That's all it does. That's all it does. And in the model that I made for those listening, this is the 4 paths to the peer model applied to an e-commerce business. And you know this better than anybody. When somebody hits a page, there's only 4 things they can do. They can bounce, they can learn more, they can opt in, or they can buy, right? So my job is to just have a bridge from each of those steps to the next step. So when we go into a company and I'm doing customer journey, I start by auditing all the fulfillment sequences of the top 3 SKUs so I know what's happening, what they're selling, all the benefits, and we rebuild those. And then we take that languaging and go to the PDP for all the people that didn't get in for that page to have its only job, move those people in. And then the last thing I build is the homepage. And if you go look at my homepage, everybody will notice there's only 4 things you can do. You can leave, you can learn more about each topic, you can exchange some information for the podcast or Instagram, and then you can get courses. So on e-commerce companies, everything on the homepage is designed for the steps to get to the PDP, but that solves the problem that didn't get them to convert on the PDP. And so, yes, everybody, listen to this, understand this. And for those of you that are like hearing CRO and like, oh, I don't know CRO, or I don't know this, or I don't have an e-commerce platform, you still think about that lens through the experiences that your customers or potential customers are hitting anywhere on an opt-in page, right? Like if you're giving them to exchange their email in exchange for something of value, the people that are your devout ones are going to hit that page and opt in and go. Your job is to find those people that are missing the 1 to 10 touch points for safety and pre-handle those and give them the pieces to allow them to feel confident, right? And so it is something to think about, because I'll give everybody an example. When we were at Vital and we were scaling Vital up into the billion range, we had to get so granular that we had to start testing people's facial expressions on the PDP page and photos and the lights and the colors. And we realized that every time we put somebody with like a neutral face or their full face, at least one eye or part of their mouth wasn't seeing the camera, conversions went down. And so we had to make it so every single image that had a person had at least a smile, even if mouth wasn't open. There had to be an eyeball like in the photo. So we couldn't have any backs. We couldn't have anything. So even if there was like one woman looking and another woman to the side who you couldn't see her face, it wouldn't convert as well as you being able to see like a side profile of both of their faces. And it was really, really interesting. But it was because we became obsessed with like, okay, what's going to make these people feel the best? What's going to have them hit this page? And realize that if they already wanted to buy, they already would have added it to their cart, right? That page is not there for those people. So what evidence do they need, right? And so this is something for everybody that you should be thinking about on any page that you're sending people to, or any place that you're trying to get somebody in. So I'm all kudos for that one too. So like, keep taking me to church.
Good. Okay. One more example here. This cool brand called Indestructible Shoes. And I went down the rabbit hole on their YouTube videos, and they've got all these. You know what I'm talking about.
I love their YouTube videos. I know exactly. Okay. I own a pair.
I mean,
and I only own a pair because of their YouTube videos. I have not worn them at all, but I had to buy them because I got them.
I mean, my favorite one was of the person like taking like this chainsaw and trying to cut through it. But there was a lot of other ones. I think a guy was like ran over by a Jeep while wearing the shoe. It's just so funny. And what do you have, like a high top or low top? Like what kind of style do you have?
I got the low tops. Because like I don't wear high tops, but like I think it was one of the ones with the chainsaw. I'm like, whatever, like you got me, like I'll get them. And I have a ranch in Montana, right? So like I'm like, I'll wear these things eventually. But yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, they had a problem with a high cart abandonment rate. And if your cart abandonment rate, depending on who you ask, generally if it's greater than like 68%, then that's pretty high. I mean, if it's below 65%, that's kind of normal. If you've got it below 60%, you're doing okay, right? But they had a really high cart abandonment rate, and they fell victim to doing what a lot of other brands do, and that is showing it a pop-up that says, before you leave, would you like a 10% off, coupon, right? Now, what we advised was, hey, wait a minute. Instead of trying to just, give out a coupon, which is going to eat into your margins, right, to try to save that person, why not try?
I gave an entire keynote just on this topic, by the way. So we're about to riff after this.
So why not try something else? Why not just try showing them, depending on, what pages they looked at or didn't look at. For example, if they didn't have anything in their cart and they were trying to leave, you could say, oh, wait a second. Would you like to see, this month's top trending, shoes or most popular items, or if they did have something in the cart, you could just show, a little pop-up that just says, oh, wait a minute, would you like to see our other popular items, this month, right? And instead of saying this month, with smart tags and the technology available today, you could say, would you like to see July's, best-selling shoes? And that could automatically populate every month without having to do anything, manually. And so they tried that, and it turns out that they were able to save a lot of abandoned cart shoppers, get people back into the buying stage and make a conversion without eating into their margin. And I think that's something that a lot of brands should try. But unfortunately, most marketers have been trained to like, wait a minute, give the 10% coupon off because it works. It does work. It saves a little bit of people. it saves some.
Ah, it
Well,
doesn't though.
short term, you're trading in long term. You're trading in long
Thank
term
you.
customer lifetime
Thank
value
you.
for a short term quick sale. That's what's happening,
Yep.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
So that's
yes.
another.
That's why I'm like, you know this with data. Like
Yeah,
I preach this so bad because the other part that you didn't say, and I'm like, let's also talk about the psychological component that goes through their head the moment they get a coupon when they abandon, and they're like, well, why was I paying full
yeah,
price in the first place? Right. And then even before it conditions a discount paradigm, and then you wonder why retention goes through the floor and dissipates, because what people listening don't realize is that when you sacrifice the long-term gain for that short-term gain, you're also sacrificing the relationship with that customer over the long term. And eventually those people run out and there's no one on the back to keep the ship afloat because everything turned into discount, transactional, and there. And so with this, I've talked about this, you'll appreciate this, but this whole thing of like, my job is to create my ideal customer, right? You just hit this. And one of the things that I say is my other job is to turn no's to neutrals and neutrals to yeses. Because what I understand is that the moment they got that abandonment, they got that cart abandonment or that browse abandonment, they already did not have enough evidence to make a decision. So any convincing that I do is going to create more reactants in their body. Chapter on reactants in the catalyst again, unless I can turn that no at least back to neutral. And when I get it back to neutral, it allows them to be open into their journey again to get what other evidence that they need. And so for those of you listening, you're like, oh, well, that would make sense to show them the other shoes. One of the things that we've done as well is knowing they were interested in indestructible shoes. What I would have done is been like, hey, do you want to see our CEO trying to cut his leg in half or his shoe in half? Right. And then just pop that
yeah,
video up. Right. Or Ben, and you have, 3 pillar articles on like the benefits or boom or safety hazards boom, and then you allow them to choose their way back in. But you'll appreciate this one because at Vital, once again, this is probably my biggest win that I've ever had because we recovered like 46% of the cart. Um, but I knew that when they added collagen and they left, they weren't going to buy it and a discount wasn't going to help. But I knew they wanted healthier hair, skin, and nails. So instead of sending them a, hey, you forgot something, I sent them a, hey, we fucked up, but since you wanted healthier hair, skin, and nails, here's our 30-day guide to getting it naturally, whether you use our product or not. And then I took them through diet, exercise, and then I gave them recipes that linked and said, if you want an additional 14 grams of protein and blank, here's a link and a coupon only if you want to use it. And so the first email said, hey, the subject line, I'll never forget it. You didn't forget anything. I failed. And then in the intro, I said, I'm not going to disrespect you, insult your intelligence. You're getting this email not because I did good, but because I didn't, and something stopped you from buying my product. And I'm not interested in discounting it. I'm interested in helping you achieve the benefit, whether you get it or not. So here's my 30-day guide to producing collagen naturally. Boom, boom, boom. Day 2, I went and called out a specific recipe, but I asked them an open-ended question. And I said, hey, I bribed you. That was my subject line. I bribed you. And I said, I have to be honest. I sent you that email yesterday because I do need something from you, but you're not going to expect this. I need you to reply to this email and tell me verbatim why you didn't buy. My branding sucked. I was mean. It didn't match. I'm like, the more ruthless you are, the better, because we're going to help you with collagen and that anyways with that guide. But I wanted to give it to you so you could give me your opinion. And people responded, and we got thousands of responses. So then the third email was said, I wouldn't have bought either. And it was an FAQ about the product. Question, solution, question, solution. Now, mind you, the only thing that was in those emails was a link at the bottom back to Shopify. Nothing clickable. Like, it was just one clickable. It was just embedded in there, but the rest was about the content. And then on that third email, I said, this is the last email you're going to get about collagen. I appreciated all of your answers, but I only felt an integrity if I could handle them. And then we took all of that info and updated the PDP with the FAQ. And then the fourth email was a, hey, I want to support you. Here's a link to our Facebook group and how to keep us accountable with you on your journey. tag us on Instagram here, come join our group here, and let us know if our team can support you with your collagen habit, right? With the behaviors we gave. And that's what we used for cart abandonment. That was the whole thing. I designed the whole thing. And yeah, we recovered like 48% of that cart. And it was insane. And all it was is that I knew that when they got to the cart, they wanted something that collagen had. They wanted a benefit, but getting a woman to add powder from the raw hide of a cow that she's never heard of before is not really like the most exciting perceived benefit. And so as they started to anchor in, like, oh, I can do it this way, I can do it this way, I can do it this way, that created the evidence for them to buy. And that was from exactly what you're talking about right now. That's one of the core things I do in everything that I do, is that I understand that when somebody says no, it means no right now. But before I can get them to a yes, I have to get them to neutral and then find the next piece for them that will get them that win. So people have heard me talk about that story, but not fully in depth. But for those wondering, that's why I did that. And I continue to do that. And that's one of the premises in tying them together. So I
I
figured
did
you might
enjoy
enjoy
it,
that.
and I just want to emphasize the power of the right subject lines, the right wording, because you didn't use like corporate, like boring subject lines in those
Nope.
emails. Each one, emails 1 and 2, were subject lines that I don't think I've ever
Yep.
seen, but they definitely caught my
Yep.
attention as you mentioned them, and I would have opened the email. I
Yep.
definitely would have opened the email.
Yep.
Once I opened it, the message that you said, it still captured my attention. I would have continued reading, and I would have been intrigued, and probably taken the desired course of action that you were trying to get people to take. Hence, the high, would you say 40 something percent? Ret-
49%. So like annualize that year, it was like worth like $11
yeah,
million. And then not to mention, by the way, the other benefit that you'll appreciate is that because of that, our retention and LTV both also went up because they didn't come in on a coupon and they were averaging a 3.5 month retention. And so when we added that in and we changed the behaviors, and then collagen became a want versus a need, and there was already an established habit because that ebook was giving them behaviors and benefits with their sleep and their movement and their water that would help their body produce collagen. And I was anchoring in collagen, that they continued to have the behavior already. So when they made the decision and the collagen came, they just added it to their coffee because they were already in routine. So they were already basically had become our customer, and then they were missing that piece. And the other part too, by the way, and you said this, the whole point of my subject line is to get your attention, but then to be integrous and tell you why. But I also knew that 85 at the time percent of people that downloaded an ebook never opened it. So I gave them the ebook, and on the second email, I called out a specific recipe and said page 14, because it will take less than 3 minutes and you most likely have all of these ingredients in your house already. But if you do nothing more, just go look at page 13 and print it or save it, because you will thank me. I didn't want it in their downloads folder. What's so crazy is on that second day, our click-through rate was 70% to the same ebook that I gave them on day one. And so even if they downloaded it and opened it, they downloaded it again. And then this time I know they opened it because the Zygarnik effect was driving them nuts, because they didn't know what that recipe was on page 13 that was so good. And so by adding the specificity and by acknowledging them and saying, hey, I let you down, I'm not trying to sell you, it got them back to neutral. And then they were able to come in. And then the second day got them into a yes, and most likely using or supporting that recipe and opening
that's
the
brilliant.
ebook.
That's brilliant. And it's so true. We download ebooks all the time, and we're like, we'll get to that later. And we never do. Never do. Never
We
do.
never do. I could do an entire podcast on this with you of like how I use ebooks and customer journeys to make sure that never happens too, but we'll keep that one for off the books.
That is fascinating. Very, very fascinating. Okay.
But yeah, so I wanted to share that one with you just because like you live in this world, right? And I don't get into data like you do. So for everybody listening, like the Eriks of the world are my best friends because they can give validity to what I do, because I'm not a data guy. Like I'm a people guy. Like I just want to move people forward. And so these examples, I feel like you're going to have 18,000 ideas, and I'm excited to hear from you because you have all the data. And I'm like, oh my God, there's so much more we can do. So this is like
Yeah.
really
Well,
fun for me. So give
okay.
me the next
Okay.
one.
All right. So
Or you can
no,
riff
no,
on the
no.
previous one, whatever you want. This
Last
is
one
the,
here. I'll touch on one of my favorite things. It's called zero party data. And for those who don't know, zero
yep.
party data, I just like to think of it as getting information from directly from the visitor, the person that's on your website, right? You ask
The
a
horse's
question,
mouth. Yep.
what's your favorite color? They tell you blue. Now you know something about them, and you can use that information to basically try to personalize that experience, right? Here's a very simple example on how an e-commerce store can take advantage of this. Let's say it's Mother's Day. They get a lot of traffic before Mother's Day. And they know a lot of those people are first time visitors that are probably just looking for a gift to buy. And they could simply just have a little pop
Mm-hmm.
up that asks a question. Hi, are you shopping for yourself or for somebody else? This season or right now. And if they say we're shopping for somebody else, then they could say, fantastic. Let me take you to the part of the website where you'll see our most giftable products this season. I like to call this the holding your hand, because when you go inside let's say you go inside H&M, Zara, or a retail store, and there's a live person that asks you, hi, how are you doing today? How can I help you? And if you tell that person, oh, I'm interested in looking at pants, they'll probably say, oh, fantastic. Come follow me. I'll show you where you can find them, right? You can do that on your website. If
Yep.
you're a health and wellness website, maybe you sell
Yep.
like 3 core products, products on how to like sleep better, how to gain muscle, or maybe how to lose weight. You can ask that up in the very beginning if you don't know anything about that person at all, and just say, hey, we want to make this a very
Mm-hmm.
enjoyable visit for you. Can you tell us what you're primarily interested in? Have those 3 selections. Once they select, you
Yep.
could say, fantastic. Here's our most popular content or blog articles around, sleeping better. And by the way, here's our most popular products as on how to sleep better or whatever. And so you basically reduce the amount of
Yep.
time that they would have spent trying to navigate around your website to find out what is important to them. And you can take care of that by just asking a simple question at the very beginning. It's a very micro engagement question. Now you know something about them, and you can actually take that information if they end up becoming a customer or subscribing to your email list, and you can basically tag them with that information, funnel that information into a CRM or email platform that you're using. Maybe it's Klaviyo or ActiveCampaign. And if you have different segments with different automation flows or whatever, know how to market to that person because you know what they're interested in now. So I think that's another easy example that you can do with technology available today. And it's one of my favorites because you can have a lot of fun with that.
I love it. So a couple points. So 0 point data for everybody. That personalization point and that example I just gave on vital proteins and that cart abandonment. That's what email 2 was for me. Is I wanted directly from the horse's mouth in their language why they didn't buy. So for everybody listening, 0 point data, you can collect it in a lot of different ways. And you allow yourself to collect it to then personalize it. And with tools like Optimonk, like yours, right, when you're doing this via email or you're using tools or anything that you're using, it's not that you need to use it all. It's that when you can collect it, it helps paint a better picture and allows for personalization to be used across the board, right? And so for those listening, you've seen this if you've ever DM'd me, because I don't want you to go to my website. You'll notice it's almost impossible for you to give me your email because I don't want it. I don't need it yet. I want you to have a reason. So, like, for example, you'll understand this, right? Like, people want, in my world, either mindset, customer journey, or like relationships. And so, in having those stepping points, I have like 5 resources that don't give me your email. They're a Google Doc, and then they deliver all the value and the resources in each bucket. So I'll go on podcasts and I do this manually still. And I'm like, and listen, like, these are the things I can help you with, but I want to make it easy for you. So if you want this, just shoot me the word mindset. And if you want this, just shoot me the word customer journey. And I don't automate this. I don't use ManyChat. I do this manually because then the first thing I do when they DM me is I send them a video and I acknowledge them for sending me the video and why they're asking me for, and then I'm going to give it to them. And I do my 5 steps that I teach everybody. But then on my phone, I have @1, @2, @3, and they're pre-populated messages of everything with those 5 resources. And my team has all the same ones. So the moment they tell me like, oh, it's mindset, I'm like, oh, well, here's my top 10 podcasts on mindset with what's covered and how it will help you and the book recommendations in this Google document. There's no point in you subscribing to the show or listening beyond these if these don't help. So I want you to take these, listen to these, and then let us know. And so even that, you can do it manually as well for people listening. And another example, because this will ring some people, when I ran Civilized Caveman, because I had a massive food blog and we had like 7 million visitors a month at its peak. And I was like the king of easy recipes. So when I would send out a recipe, and this was back like 2014 when I could barely tag anybody in ConvertKit, right? Like this was manual work back then. But when I would send you a recipe, I would write the whole recipe email, and then at the bottom, they would all link to the same place. But I would say, hey, I made this so it's easier for you to make. So if you're cooking for a family of 2, click here. 4, click here. 6, click here. And all I had done on the recipe page was did the recipe size. They all went to the same place, but the moment they clicked, I was like 2 people, 4 people, 6 people. And so then that was also a crock pot chicken recipe. So I would tag them crock pot and chicken. And then this is what's funny. I only had like 1,800 people on my email list, but I went and made a crock pot for chicken ebook, a crock pot for beef ebook, and then I made a version for serving sizes. And so then I made it for $7. I put it up on Amazon, and I only sent an email to those single moms who had crock pot chicken. And I converted like 80% of the list, and all 6 of them hit #1 each time I did it because it was personalized. And I learned that from one of my mentors back in the day, Andre Chaperone, who created the autoresponder, right? Who's now a friend of mine. And I didn't use them all the time, but then people would be like, how do you know you're talking to me? And I'm like, well, I know how many crockpot recipes, how many beef recipes. And I could look in my CRM and be like, dude, this person is a sugar addict, because every tag in their profile was just the dessert stuff. So then I would like write dessert emails, right? And so, you know, for people listening, you know, for those that are running e-commerce platforms, like, and by the way, and I just want to say this, I'm not affiliated with Optimonk whatsoever, but I use their tool in a lot of our companies, right? So if you're on an e-commerce platform, anyone, you Woo, it integrates with Active, Klaviyo, they have it all listed out. You understand this and use this 0-point data in that ecosystem to help personalize that experience, but also take the same principles and apply them to everywhere where you're not automating it yet. How can you add that level of personalization to an Instagram message or to an email that you send out or to a video that you make, right? It's about thinking about this, because your message, as we said earlier, is only as effective as their ability to hear it. And the 0-point data is all the copywriting you ever need. It's their words, it's their language, it's their preferences. And so if you can utilize that anywhere, it will enhance your experience. And I think it's a super, super important concept for everybody. And even for those like website owners, you've seen this. You'll go to the top of a website and it'll be like, what are you interested? You know, protein, blank or blank. And when you click on it, it will hyperlink or open up whatever you chose. And it's allowing you to choose your adventure and choose your journey. And so the more personalized you can do that, the better it's going to be for everybody. So with the tools, do it, but also with your thinking, do it, because that's what's going to make sure that they have that experience. And the last thing I want to say, because you said this, and I've said this for years and very few people understand it, I think one of the biggest casualties that's happened because of digital marketing and our ability to have this much connection is people think that the online ecosystem is different than the in-person ecosystem, when it's just an extension of it with faster touch points, but needs to be treated the same. And the #1 metaphor I use is a brick and mortar store for every single customer journey. And I'm like, imagine how you would feel if you walked into Nike and said, I want pants, and they stood there with a blank look on their face and didn't respond, because that's what we do online. And then you're like, oh yeah, they're back there. And you send them into a 40,000 square foot store and get upset that they walk out without pants, knowing that the easiest way is to grab them by the hand and walk them all the way to where they need to go to a personalization point, leading them to water, knowing that they have to drink it. But that is removing all of the friction and all of the objections that would make them stop. pursuing it. And what everybody has to understand is that if you give somebody a back door, they will take it, because they require a 3.1x perceived benefit to be able to go. And so when there's miscommunication, when it's not personalized, for them, if they're not feeling safe, if they're not feeling seen or understood, if it's not personalized, it's going to move them further away. And then you're going to get frustrated as to why they can't convert. And very rarely, and I will say this across the board, and I've done this with thousands of companies, 99% of the time, it's never content. It's always the context of that journey that gets in the way, right? And the more you can understand in all of these 5 principles, the faster you're going to win. So I feel so good right now listening to that. I'm fired up about all this right now.
I'm happy. I'm happy you liked them,
Oh,
George.
those are incredible. Well, no, and I do, and like for me, I want to give some kudos too, because for people listening, like I started building and doing this in 2009, right? Like I couldn't get personalization and changed headlines. I remember every tool that came out, every one that we tried, the personalized
Yeah.
landing pages, the first conversation-based page, the first time we could change a headline, then when we could do it in Google. Like I've been through all of them, and the fact that I can click on now and literally do it in
Yeah.
like a matter of minutes blows my mind. And then you take things like Bonjoro and you add those to the pages, and you're like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I just get a personalized page and there's a video of George talking about what's on this page, inviting me in. That experience is what creates the moment that allows them to come in. And so I like, kudos, man. Like I love this. This is
Yeah,
incredible
no, we're
stuff.
pretty excited. We're really excited coming down the pipeline. We are investing a lot more in AI. We're trying to basically do a lot of the work for our customers, because it does takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort to implement these experiments or these campaigns. But the more that we can do for you automatically, the better it is. It's going to be for you. We've already got a new AI headline tester. So if there was headlines on different pages on your website that you wanted to test, you can just use our little AI tester tool, and it will recommend like 5 different headlines that you can test. And if you want, you can set it to run automatically, and it will run different headlines automatically until a winner has been found, and then it will switch another one in to automatically test and continually testing to find out which one has the highest conversion rate. And it'll just do that for you without you having to do any work on your end. And so we're trying to find more things that we can do that. And that way, more people, more brands have the power to not just increase their sales, but to really deliver, a better customer experience for the people that are coming to their website and their audience.
Which, as a byproduct, is guaranteed to increase your sales. And I say this all the time. And I'm like, somebody name me a $1 billion company without a community and a pool of people that have never bought but still feel supported by the brand, right? Because what a lot of people don't understand is that scale comes from people that haven't bought, but how they feel about the brand. Because 80% of our social media followers, our comments, our sharers are never people that bought the brand, but it's because they had a positive experience with the brand when
Yeah.
they didn't buy. And 93% of marketing is word of mouth as of 2023. And the average consumer gives 8 to 10 brand recommendations or non-recommendations in a 60-second conversation. So for those listening, like, this is important. When you play the long game on the relationship, you win the short game by default. And if you can't hear from Erik on this call and on this podcast that, like, not once did we talk about changing the product. Not once did we talk about changing what was inside the box. The entire time was focused on changing the wrapping paper and chunking it down so people could understand what was in the box and get it in the first place. And so understand that when it comes to customer journey, when it comes to conversions, when you have a product, when you have a service, when you have an offer that works, you've already won that part of the game. But now that it's on your menu, the rest of your life is focused on making sure that other people can get into it. They understand what you're saying. You're advertising it correctly. You're personalizing it to literally be the person at the mall handing out the teriyaki chicken sample. And then once they bite it, walking them all the way to the counter, getting them in, and then fulfilling on what's there. And I think it forces focus on what really, really matters, right? Which is getting out of the way of all the things behind the scenes that used to overwhelm us to allow us to be in that personalization and in that customization and in the relationships with these people that are going to give us the 0 point data. that are going to tell us what they need and need more of, that when we personalize are going to get the results and buy the products, but then also bring other people in. And so for those listening to this doesn't matter whether you have a product or not, you have a brand or not, these principles, and Erik spoke with data, right? He's at a company that I know and was at another company I know, and I know they're obsessive with data and customer experience. And this is all from massive like qualitative and quantitative data, but these principles apply across the board, right? Knowing where to spend your time and making sure you're spending it in the place where your customer is going to benefit, right? Putting your time into the things that are going to help them, connecting with them so you can get that 0 point data, asking how you can personalize things at every level, ensuring that there's consistency and congruency across the board, right? Even if you're not running paid media, YouTube would be an example. If you make a YouTube thumbnail, the only purpose of that thumbnail is to be a billboard that stops and gets their attention with the text that's on it. And the attention is to lead to the title, and the title should be the next line of the story. And then that job should be to get them to open the video, and the first 30 seconds should match that story and tell them, now that they know that, here's what they're going to get in the video, right? That's every customer journey. He gave examples like myavi.com, that protein. I went and I clicked, I will be buying some, right? And you can see how this applies and just realize that when you focus your time on the right things, which is everything to do with your customer and that journey, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? It's obsessing about those things so that they can get the results, they can use the products, they can have the experience, because they turn into your biggest advocates. They also are your best data. They also tell you what they need next. They'll tell you what products you need next, right? So the implications that come after this, like the waterfall of positivity, is huge for every single company. So yeah, I learned a lot, had a lot of reminders, had a lot of like, oh yep, got to remember that. Oh yep, that's great. Like it's really really powerful, and I loved it, man. So thank you so much. Are there any other big things on your brain? Any open loops? Anything you want
No,
to
I
do to
think that's
land
a
the plane?
very good summary of everything that we discussed. If you're curious to learn more about OptiMonk, you can just go to our website. We've got a pretty cool tactical library. And you can check out all the various personalization tactics and strategies that you can implement. And it shows you like step-by-step instructions on how to implement those utilizing our tool. And if you want to connect with me, I am active on LinkedIn. You can just find me under Erik Melker.
And that's for everybody listening. It's ERIC and then
Correct.
MELCHOR.
Yep.
Correct, Erik Melkor. Okay, and then OptiMonk. It's
Yeah,
Optimonk, right? OPTI,
that's
and then
correct. One word,
monk.com.
OptiMonk. Yeah.
One word. I don't know what word I just tried to make up a minute ago. And here's the thing for everybody listening. Something on today's podcast triggered a thought in your brain. You're like, I can personalize that. I can add that. I can try that. The most important thing for me is that whatever that was, you go try it and you go use it. And so go to the website, go look in the tactical library for ideas and give yourself the ability to test these things, to try these things. But as you were listening today, there was probably something where you're like, oh, I could personalize that. I could personalize that. The faster you practice any of these, the faster you're going to fall in love with them and realize the power of these things and these things to focus on. So utilize these tools. And I 1000% recommend going and checking out the website. If you want to connect with Erik in any way, I'm sure he's the guy of partnerships over there for those entrepreneurs listening at bigger scales. Like reach out if you want help, if you want to get connected, if you want to get on. I'm assuming your ethos at your company is very similar to Bonjoro. It's very family. Everybody's approachable. You just want to help and be a
Absolutely.
part of this. And so for everybody listening, like I can vouch for that from the bottom of my heart. I've known the Bonjoro guys for like 6 years, and Casey's incredible. And he worked with Erik, and Erik in my entire experience has been the same. And I've used the tool before. So if it works for you, if it intrigues you, if it excites you, I recommend that you pursue it and you go take a peek at it. So yeah, I really
Hey, thanks for
appreciate it,
having me
man.
on the show, George.
No, dude, it was absolute honor. I'm literally like I'm getting interviewed in like 15 minutes, and I am so excited about how much geeky energy I have in my body right now. I feel like you just put me back on the football field, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is fun. I don't get to talk about this often, so I love it, man. And thank you so much for all of this and being so articulate with it and clear and the data and your views on it and letting me get excited and share on my own show because I don't get to talk about this stuff a lot. And I'm like, oh my God, he gets it. He's gonna So sorry for fire hosing you with a little bit of excitement, but for those listening, take the invitation, right? I am so excited that Erik got to share this because this is the focus of a lot of things that I've been teaching you. And if you guys need help with any of this, grab a ticket to the event in November. I might even figure out how to schmoozle some Bonjoro guys or OptimMonk guys to come out to one of them in the future. But make sure you understand that like this is the secret, right? When I say relationships beat algorithms, there was just data given to you from a very big level of a company from 10 grand to 4 million, of a company from blank to blank, by utilizing the principles we teach. And then Erik also giving you tools and things. And so if we can help in any way, reach out, DM us on Instagram, grab an event ticket, mindofgeorge.com/event, and we will be there to support. But I recommend connecting with Erik. I would connect with you on LinkedIn, but I'm banned for life, Erik, so I can't. Just so you know, for everybody wondering, I did a whole podcast on this, but that was old. I was on a flight, Erik, and I had to do a post on LinkedIn, and my password got locked out when I was flying, and the Wi-Fi wasn't fast enough for me to reset it. So I texted my executive assistant, and I was like, hey, will you reset my password? And the moment he did, they locked my account and said I violated the terms of service with shared logins. This was like 2 years ago. And they were banning me for life. And then I replied with this long email. I'm like, you're telling me I'm the only CEO that has an executive assistant act on his behalf when 100 of my friends own companies running thousands of people's LinkedIns with their login. And they're like, yep, you didn't make it past the filter. We caught you. And then they reaffirmed the decision and said, you are banned for life under your name, under your social, under any. And so I printed it and framed it, and it's in my office hanging on my wall over there. And I will tell you, it's one of my favorite things is saying I'm banned from LinkedIn for life because I like abstained from that platform anyways. But that's why I can't connect with you on LinkedIn.
Okay, I get to say I know somebody who's been banned, almost like I know somebody who's been in prison, but in this case, somebody who was banned from LinkedIn. Yeah.
Banned from LinkedIn, right? I'll take that one all day. So, dude, it was an honor. It was a pleasure. Stick around for a second. But for those of you, that'll wrap another show. I had a blast. I'm like a giddy little kid over here right now with this one. But most importantly, like I say always, it's only as good as your ability to use it. So take one thing from today, grab it, put it into practice, and be excited about this because this is where the work happens. This is the most important part, and utilize the resources. Erik dropped a ton of knowledge. OptimMonk has a ton of stuff. Connect with him on LinkedIn and just make sure you keep pursuing this. So we will see you in the next episode, or you will hear me in your earballs. But either way, we're out.